It is always a delight, at least for me, to do a dual stream, to have a crossover episode. Bleav in Hawks joins the equivalent of Bleav in Warriors. We're called Golden Days. Bryce Lewis joins us. Bryce, starting things off, how can people follow you on Twitter? Is that your main platform?
If you want to follow me on Twitter, Bryce_2K, BRICEY_2K. If y'all want to follow me out there, obviously keeping up with the team, and you want to talk ball as well. So
beautiful. And again, Bryce hosts Bleav in Hawks. We do Golden Days here. You can follow me on Twitter at Surf Journalist, on Threads and Instagram at Dog Wild, and our program is on both platforms at Golden Daze Pod. We're powered by FanDuel. And speaking of FanDuel, Bryce, I want to shift the focus from the Warriors onto your team, because I did a show earlier today and we talked about the Dubs. They're playing the Celtics, the first game out of the All-Star break. But for the Hawks, they're going to resume action after the All-Star break in Philly. They're taking on the 76ers. Philly is a 4-point favorite. The money line for the Hawks plus 158. The OU on that, 236.5. Any thoughts on how the bookmakers at FanDuel feel about the Hawks coming out of the All-Star break, taking on the Philadelphia 76ers?
I mean, overall, right now we kind of went into it not the greatest, so understandable why the odds are where they are right now and everything of that sort. But obviously, don't know if the line will play if a particular player that we are going to talk about on the show today potentially suits up for us. So, not really too shocked, too surprised or anything about that. But obviously, I think the All-Star break was needed, and hopefully, guys will be ready to go and get ready to play. I think we are 1-1 against Philly so far this year. So, I think that should be a good game coming out.
And we got in contact. I reached out to the boss at Bleav, because when the Kristaps Porzingis trade happened, or as we know him here on Golden Days, and it was a befuddling trade because no one had predicted it. Huge surprise, right? All these aggregators and clickbaiters who love spewing all this trade nonsense, rumors, and so forth. They're rarely, if ever, right. They rarely, if ever, actually predict a trade. Look, more power to them. They're if they're making money doing that, respect, I guess. But no one had on their bingo card Kristaps Porzingis, aka going to the Golden State Warriors. And in return, you guys, a side note, I think you easily won this trade. You're getting Jonathan Kaminga and Buddy Hield. The Buddy Hield part of it is interesting. We'll talk about that too. But and so I reached out to the boss of Bleav. I'm like, dude, we got to do a crossover here, because I have no idea what the Warriors or Dub Nation can expect. And, given how sporadic his playing time has been this year. And so I thought, damn, dude, you would know. You've been watching this guy play for your team this whole season. It's only been 17 games. And then when we connected, you had your own questions about Kaminga. And I had forgotten almost that Buddy Hield was included in the trade. So here we are. And the Warriors fans are dying with curiosity. Bryce, if you don't mind starting by me asking you about Kristaps, because none of us here know what to expect. My strong theory is that this was just a move to save money, to get Kaminga off the books. Porzingis is going to be off the books from his perspective, contract-wise, at the end of this year, so you could have a clean slate. And then after the trade happened, Bryce, I had a lot of folks coming to me talking about this POTS. Trachycardia is the condition that Kristaps has, and it's serious business. And what I've been learning after the trade is that anybody with this condition, like, they're not any dreams or aspirations of a career in professional sports is likely just that, a dream. You're no longer a professional athlete outside of what it says on paper, because this affects your heart, and there's no cure for it. The only treatment for it, from my research, is rest and hydration. So I don't think he's going to play much. Am I wrong on that, Bryce? And start things off there, man. What should Warriors fans expect from Kristaps Porzingis, aka Tingus Pingus?
Well, you kind of talked about it with the illness and everything like that, and he only played 17 games for us, right? Obviously, since it was so new and fresh last year, it wasn't probably enough time for a lot of people to get enough research, and plus we didn't know what it was till literally the start of the season. So It was like, you didn't know, is this something that's going to linger? Is this something that could go away? We didn't know. And obviously, as we know on social media, people took that illness and said very many different things about what it could be. But I think really for Kristaps Porzingis and just, what the Warriors fans are getting is when he has played for the Hawks, he has been a positive on the floor. The Hawks have a positive net rating when Kristaps Porzingis has played. Remember, he's still a 7-footer who can score. He can get you 20 a game. He isn't as, I would say, he isn't as laterally quick as he maybe was a little bit earlier in his career, but still he's 7'3", can protect the rim, contest shots, make guys, change, second guess if they want to take a shot, et cetera, et cetera. And, he's never been a great rebounding big, but obviously guy, again, size, he can take advantage of mismatches. That's one thing I think, as I've watched Golden State too throughout the years, y'all never really ran through a big. So he is somebody you could run offense through if you wanted to. He's a great guy where the Hawks will do this multiple times. Shot clock runs down. Maybe you get a good switch, a smaller guy, which he's bigger than most guys in the league, but a smaller guy on him. And then you just let KP either get fouled because he knows how to draw fouls, or he'll just take a shot right over his head. So it's one of those things where for Hawks fans, it's tough because when he's played, he's been good. This isn't a situation where he hasn't been good and then he's not playing. And that's why I think the Hawks come into the season expected him to be a bigger part of this team, as the season went on. And then, when we got out to that early, I think it was like 13-9, 13-8, where it looked like, okay, Hawks seem like, with Trey gone, they're steady, they're winning games. It was because of KP. When KP had the illness, and obviously Nikhil stepping up, Jalen stepping up, all those things. But when Kristaps went out, that's when we nosedived. Because it's one thing losing Trey, but now you lose KP, you lose that rim protector, you lose that extra score, you lose a lot of things that the Hawks need. And so if he can play for the Warriors, as far as I know, he'll be productive because he hasn't shown he won't be productive. You know what I'm saying? He's probably the most skilled big you guys have had since what? I mean, I don't
You could argue ever. You could argue ever.
But
since Will Chamberlain, maybe.
Yeah. That point, yes, exactly. So, I think it's just one of those things where if he hasn't played, he was questionable when he was traded. So I'm assuming he was about to get back on the floor. So I'm assuming he will be back on the floor soon for you guys. But overall, I think that KP for the Warriors, he's a good fit. He fits the spacing. He could shoot. And, if he can play, it's an upside. And he's on an expiring deal. If he's able to play some games, maybe if you're the Warriors, you can explore, okay, do we want to give him maybe another contract? He probably won't be as expensive as his contract is right now just because of the illness. So that's something to look into as well.
Well, and that's fascinating because everything you've just said right there is probably making members of Dub Nation, anybody who has an emotional investment in the Warriors, thrilled. I mean, this is best case scenario based off what you just described about him. Of course, the huge caveat here is he going to be available? Side note, thank you for the correction in the audience, is tachycardia. I think I said trachycardia. It's tachycardia, which is a T in POTS that he's afflicted with. And again, the numbers, you're absolutely right, dude. I'm looking at his game log this season, and when he's played, he's been producing. I also, someone in our audience the other day brought up the fact that it was the game on November 22nd. The Hawks were at the Pelicans. Porzingis played 33 minutes that game, a season high for him, drops 30 points, adds 7 rebounds, 4 assists. But that's when that's when the vanishing act and his absence has started. And the theory is that because he played so many minutes that game, the 33, it overwhelmed him and it led to the illness maybe kind of taking control. So, in your opinion, what has been the issue with his durability? Because I bring this up largely because the final game he was scheduled to play for the Hawks was the Tuesday before the trade deadline. He was actually listed on the injury report as questionable. He had not played since January 7th. And then he gets traded to the Warriors. Rick Celebrini, the head of medicine for Golden State, he does his own check on him. And then the very next injury report, he's listed as out with left Achilles management. And I'm looking at this going, okay, 1 minute is illness. next minute left Achilles management. Side note, not exactly an injury you want to see for a player. So in your opinion, or maybe factually, based off your research, your reporting, what have you seen and what do you think is the primary cause of Porzingis only playing 17 games this year?
Well, I mean, I think obviously, like, with the illness, the Hawks, when he had the first flare up, I think where he missed a couple of games and came back, the Hawks kind of adjusted his minutes where they were trying to get him at like 20 to 25. That's kind of where it was like sweet spot. And then obviously and then they would also mention a lot about conditioning because like obviously he's missing games. So then he has to ramp back up his conditioning.
Right.
So like you're trying to ease him up and then he'll get up and then he'll have another, change. He'll just be out the next game. And then you don't know how long he'll be out. That's the thing I think is that we don't know if some of it is they're just not trying to push him or he really is dealing with it actively, on a daily basis for him. I mean, there was a point where in that process, we were just like, we're going to sit him out for 2 weeks and we'll reevaluate it. Because in that, maybe that he could have played that 2 weeks, but clearly they were like, okay, let's just try not to play him for a minute, see if he can come back, play multiple games and go from that perspective. Because again, everybody's learning how to deal with this. There is no direct answer of how to deal with it. So, when he came back, he played 2 games when he came back. And I remember watching those games, and when he would take threes, I didn't see a lot of lift on his shot. And then after those 2 games, that's when the Achilles thing came up. So I do think the Achilles was a real thing for him, just because I felt like he didn't have a lot of lift, and that could come obviously from your Achilles. But, obviously the illness could have played a part in that. We have no idea. And then even the trade deadline, like you mentioned, he was actually ruled available like 4 or 3 hours before the game. And then that's when they ruled him out with an illness. Which obviously, since it was near the trade deadline, it's like, okay, maybe they were like, all right, Warriors, we're about to make a trade. Let's just not even put him on the floor. Because you know how it is against the trade deadline. Let's not even take it.
It's chaos. Yeah, it's chaos.
Right?
Yeah.
So for like I said, for KP, it's just if don't expect him to play a lot of minutes. He will probably never be a 30-minute guy again. 2025 will be the highest you will get from him if you want to try to keep him on the floor.
Yeah.
So the one thing about the illness that sucks the most is that this brother could play well, and then the next game he's just out. And he finished the game, everything, and he's just out. And so I think that's going to be that's the toughest part of this entire process with KP is that just there's not the consistency there. So we'll see what the doctors say, what obviously your doctors say. I don't know, your medical staff could be different from my medical staff, and see if they feel like clearly they made this move thinking, hey, maybe, KB can show us something. Like, it's almost like he's probably that type of player you're looking at. Is like, if we can just get this amount of games per year from you, that's fine. We'll work with that. You can't expect him to play 70. He will probably never be eligible for a award again in this league. All right. I mean, I'm just being honest with what's going on.
That's all I want. That's all we want.
If he has any extra injuries, then you got to deal with that too. So, KP, obviously I hope he can make it through this. I know a lot of people worry just, because like you said, it's something that like, if you want to be a pro athlete, it seems like a dream with that. But KP clearly, wants to. And remember, he played in the league overseas for FIBA, I think, or was it the Eurobasket? It was Eurobasket. He played in Eurobasket with his country, and he played all the games, no problem. Now, I think they played every few days, but like that's why everybody was like, well, he played Eurobasket in all the games, he was fine. So, and he's like, I'm feeling good, and so that's why again we're coming into the season thinking, oh, okay, KP's here, and he played like the first 3, 4, 5 games before he had to sit out a game. So it's just one of those things where it's like you just don't know what you're getting.
Bryce, I don't know if I should thank you for the incredibly positive news, or if I should be very upset with you for lifting up my hopes, only for Kristaps to come in and break all of our hearts. I'm being facetious, obviously. So, but look, what you're saying is I think the absolute best case scenario for what could be with Kristaps Porzingis, because in reality, I don't think anyone's expecting him to be a 30-minute a game player again. I think if he can even show up for 2025, but do it consistently, right? And that includes not playing back-to-backs. It would be a win in terms of what the Warriors are hoping for. So this is like incredibly encouraging news. Real quick before I'll shut up and I'll let you ask whatever you're interested in, because this is a crossover, man. This is also Bleav in Hawks. And hello to the Bleav in Hawks audience. I'm Cyrus Sauces. I talk about the Warriors. So thank you for having me. So again, very encouraging news with Kristaps. You said something though that was very interesting, because I'm only getting the general perspective on the Hawks. I'm not getting the detailed nuance in terms of information about the team. And the impression I've been under is that the Hawks this year, their success and their tribulations have been tied almost directly not to Kristaps Porzingis, but to Trae Young. And that when he's played, the team struggled. When he was out for those games, they did well. Are those just two different stories where both can be true, or was I totally misreading things? And the success and failure of the Hawks this year was tied to Mr. Tingus Pingus?
Honestly, what these questions always come down to is just how your team's constructed. I think in this particular situation, I think it's more tied to Kristaps not being able to play more than Trae. And to me, it was just because if you look at our front court after him, you have a Okongwu, who a lot of people like, but he is an undersized center. He is, right? And then we had Moge and Azanul, who really are more, to me, 4s than 5s. So you really only have one center on your roster, and then he comes off the floor, and now you got guys playing out of position, and you're undersized, and the Hawks have been a bad rebounding team all year. And I just like the issues the Hawks had, defensive transition, rebounding, that had nothing to do with Trae. Trae was not fixing that. Like that's one thing I always talk about. People when talk about the Trae Young stuff is that the issues the Hawks have was not a Trae Young issue for this team this year, because he was not fixing. He's not magically going to help us become a better rebounding team. So that's why I said, and like I said, KD wasn't an elite rebounder, but like those last few games he played in Atlanta, I remember watching those games, and I said when he was on the floor, we were so much better defensively. It just changes your defensive philosophy when you know, okay, we have a 7-footer back there. So if somehow my guy gets past me, it's not, well, we're cooked because we have no rim protection. You have someone who's like, all right, he can, if he does good help, communicate on defense, things of that nature, that could still help our defense a lot. Where I think, like I said, for Trae, you had Nikhil step up this year. So that was something that, a lot of people did not see. Ends up being one of the best additions of the offseason in the NBA. And then on top of that, you have Jalen Johnson emerge and et cetera. So, that's why for me, I feel like the success really to me was more KP than Trae, just because of how the team was constructed.
This is all like the greatest news I could hear from you pertaining to Porzingis. I've been so down on this trade, and my mindset entirely has been, don't expect this guy. Like I put the over under on the number of games he's going to play for the Warriors this year at 10. And I know what you're saying doesn't pertain as much to his health as it is to the contributions he's making on the court. And what I'm hearing, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, is that if he plays, the Warriors might have found a gem. And that's wild to me, because a lot of people are kind of, or a lot of people were down on this trade, not just because of the Kaminga aspect of it and moving on from this young asset, which I think you guys got a prize there, and we'll talk about that, but more so the fact that the Warriors did nothing another year for Steph and Curry. But if Kristaps Porzingis plays, it sounds like Steph has someone on that floor with him who can help. Is that a fair? Is that fair from your perspective?
Yeah, definitely. I think it'll be interesting to see how y'all use KP, because again, he can shoot threes. So it's like, and I know obviously like you guys, like us, spacing is very important for the offense. Spacing is all key. So it'll be interesting to see how y'all use him. Do y'all use him more in the post? Do y'all use him around the basket more? Or do y'all have him at the 3-point line a lot? Because he definitely, I think that's why when you heard the trade go down, Warriors execs and people in the organization were like, oh, I think he fits what we do well. Because like, technically, yeah, he fits. He would fit what you guys want to do. Like and then, like I said, he's the biggest big y'all had in forever. Like there's just so many things that like if this was KP that didn't have the illness, you'd be like, oh my God, we just, maybe, obviously this is like future telling or something, but he's here. Jimmy comes back potentially at some point next year. Steph's here. Draymond's here. I think that's a really good, at least 4 starters right there. And then you figure out who that 5th guy is. But
right.
I think when he plays, he'll be impactful. Like, and the thing is, it's almost like he'll now become a player where he's just impactful in shorter periods of time. If he plays 20 minutes, he can get you 16 in that 20 minutes. That's still effective. That is still something that is, probably going to be helpful for you guys and et cetera. And, we'll have to see when, I guess playoffs will be the big thing. Can he play a little bit more? Because, again, you don't want him game 1 and he's just out game 2. And then you're like, I don't know when we're going to get him back. So it's definitely one of those things where if he is on the floor, though, I think he can definitely help the Warriors. And I think he fits what they want to do.
Oh my God. I'm suddenly getting excited here, right? I don't know what you're doing to me here, Bryce. You're stirring up some feelings I haven't felt in a long time. But look, I have some more questions for Porzingis, but I want to take a break because this is also Bleav in Hawks. And I don't think the Hawks fans care that much about a player who got traded away. What's on your mind, man? Pick my brain because, and what I'll lead into this with 2 things. One, some Warriors fans were stoked that Kaminga got traded, not because of the talent, but because clearly Steve Kerr didn't like him. That relationship did not work professionally. Personally, I've never, I don't know if there's like personal animus there, but on the court, it just was not something that Kerr liked. And you could blame the front office maybe for rolling too long with this experiment. But again, experiment's done. You have some fans who were stoked that he got traded for that reason. And then you have a lot of fans who were very disappointed because, they saw the talent there and they did not understand. And I'm part of that group. Like, how do you not, as a head coach, make this work? And it starts from what I've seen for these last 3-4 years with the minutes. It's just the faith was not there. The trust was not there in Kerr to play this kid. And that's all he needs, man. Because I don't know if you're aware of this, but when Kuminga plays 30 or more minutes a night, he puts up over 20 points a game, actually 21. I'm sorry. He averages over 6 rebounds a game, and he shoots over 41% from deep. So all the rhetoric about him being a bad shooter, maybe that happens based off small sample sizes, but when he plays, he delivers. And that leads to the other thing I want to bring up, and then I'll shut up, Bryce, because I'm sure you have a lot of questions. But yesterday's All-Star game featured an interaction between Anthony Edwards and Jalen Johnson. And I think more people took what more people took away from that was, ooh, is Anthony Edwards maybe going to the Hawks? And maybe that's true as well. I don't know. But what I took away from that is what he told Jalen Johnson, which is, and I'll say, quote, I hope this quote is accurate here, but this is what Anthony Edwards told Jalen Johnson, quote, y'all got so many wings, Kaminga, you gonna like him, unquote. Anthony Edwards knows this guy very well based off the playoff series last year, numerous regular season encounters, both being Western Conference teams. I think you guys got a gem in Jonathan Kaminga. I also think you have a great head coach who's better suited at developing a younger player. What are your questions and thoughts on him and Buddy, if you have questions about him as well?
Well, it's interesting because just what you're saying is something I've seen in like when I've looked at Kaminga and what he does and things of that nature, because it's so interesting. I feel like he's so polarizing. Like, so there's some people who talk about Kaminga like he really is a star player already. He just hasn't been given the ability to show that. Kerr talked about, mistakes, playing through mistakes. And obviously, yeah, young player, he's going to have those, what happened. But obviously, as you see, I've seen in the comments and I've seen from Warriors fans after crash outs and things of that, Pods is playing and he makes a ton of mistakes every game and he's still playing. So I guess my first question is, would you say that Jonathan Kaminga on the version of the Warriors before the trade deadline was the 3rd best player on the team? Because I have seen that from Warriors fans So Warriors fans came to my podcast after the trade and said he after Curry and Butler, he's like our best player. Like that's how good people are high on him. They think this brother could have changed some things for them. I mean, literally, was it Curry went down last year in the playoff series and he came in? I think it was Curry, and then he averaged what 24. So people are like, you don't just do that and you're not good. So like, what's the big idea here? So would you say that he was their best player on the Warriors? And just do you think that you think he has star potential?
Yes and yes. I not just, you're absolutely right about the numbers he put up in that Minnesota series last year. And side note, Kaminga was DNP the final 3 games of last regular season. We never got clear explanations for why. It was just like Steve Kerr keeps saying that he makes these decisions based off his gut. Anybody who likes rhyme or reason does not appreciate that lack of specificity. But that's the reason he kept giving for Kaminga not playing, is that it just wasn't a good fit. It just he never gave very specific reasons why Kaminga did not play. But he got DNP'd the final 3 games of last year, which did not pay off. The Warriors, I think, lost 2 of their last 3, including a very disappointing loss the final game against the Clippers that dropped them out of the playoffs. So that strategy in and of itself, just from that result, didn't work. And then Kuminga kept getting DNP'd in the first round of the playoffs against the Rockets until Jimmy Butler got injured. And just to give Hawks fans an idea of just the utter lunacy of Steve Kerr's rotations, like he views Jimmy Butler as a power forward. And he views Kaminga as a power forward. And so in his mind, there was not enough space on the floor for 2 power forwards. So it was always going to be in Steve Kerr's mind. And again, whether or not this makes any sense to you or not, it made no sense to me, or at least most audience members of this show. But it wasn't until Jimmy Butler got hurt in that Rocket series that Jonathan Kaminga got suddenly thrust in, right? All of a sudden, he went from being DNP'd to now a part of the rotation. And it took him about a game or 2 before he admitted publicly that he regained his confidence, right? He admitted his confidence got shot a little bit because of the DNPs. And those Rockets games, he was playing some limited minutes, and the results were mixed. And he said it was taking him a minute to build the confidence back. And then he said he got it back. And then when Stephen Curry got hurt in the Minnesota series with a hamstring injury, Kaminga was suddenly getting heavy minutes, and he was delivering. Like you said, he was putting up these big points. Adding to that, this season, he was DNP'd for over a month. For again, inexplicably, it just doesn't fit. That's all we kept hearing Kerr say. And he comes back because Jimmy Butler is out for the year with the torn ACL. And even 30 minutes of action, 29 minutes of action, he scored 30 points after not playing for over a month. And he comes back in one game, he plays 20 minutes. I think he scores 20 points. People are like, whoa. Another game, he plays, I think 9 minutes, scores 10 points. I mean, he's a very impactful player who can get you points. I personally don't see weaknesses in his game. I know some people think the shot can be suspect. I think the shot's fine. You just got to let him have the high volume for the percentages to even out and show what he's really worth. He's not built to be a role player. And everyone who scouted him in high school and his 1 year in G League Ignite knew that. You don't draft this guy to play him sporadic minutes and specific roles. If you're gonna have Jonathan Kuminga on your team, you got to just let him play. So I would say for Hawks fans, if you want this to succeed, he needs to be a part of your team. He needs to be a part of the rotation. He's not and again, this is conducive to everyone's success, not just Kuminga's. If you want your team to get the most out of this deal, play the damn kid. He can play. So I would say confidently that I think the Hawks got a gem in this guy. And I personally think you guys easily won this trade. I still cannot believe the way the Warriors handled him. Bob Myers quit after his first year as GM because he saw the way Kerr was treating not just him, but just all the young players. And Bob Myers valued relationships so much that the last thing he wanted to suddenly be in a position of is explaining to players he drafts and signs why the coach won't play him. And not having a good reason for that. So he was like, F this, man. He also saw a coach who was going to do things his way, and he's like, I'm out. And again, it was a drama-filled 4.5 years. The relationship is over. And you guys, I think, got a tremendous player. I already forgot, forgive me, what the original question was, but I hope I answered it for you.
No, I know. I definitely. I mean, that's the biggest thing I kind of gained is that he has a lot of support. And the fact that I said that the fact that NBA, the show that Charles, Shaq, and Kenny do on ESPN, we had a segment about, is Jonathan Kaminga going to be the face of the Hawks? And it's like, the fact that he's even being mentioned like that is like, clearly people view him highly. Like,
well, you have Jalen Johnson, which makes that question kind of crazy to me.
I know, that's what people are saying. It's like, Jalen Johnson's there. But it's so interesting just to kind of hear it. Because I think one thing that hurts Kaminga is if you are an analytics person, I don't think that analytics paint the picture that Kaminga has been that impactful.
What analytics are you looking at?
Well, I don't remember anything off the top of my head. These are from my people I watch that do analytics. Because there's some people who cover the game who like look at analytics a lot, and they're like, well, I like his like drives percentage, scoring off percentage points off drives are not as high as you would think they would be in an elite spacing offense like Golden State and etc. I've seen the, he's not the best defender. Like I've seen that, but then I'm also seeing that he can guard the other team's best offensive player. He's not the greatest shooter, but you said maybe he just needs more volume of shots.
And adding to that, Bryce, the shooting percentage thing, again, this is based off very limited sample sizes. A case in point, and this was entering this year, the number probably went lower. Kuminga is, or at least was, and entering this current season, 18th in his draft class in minutes per game, 1.8 for the 7th pick in that draft. And if you're going to do a redraft on that, Kaminga is still top 10 easy, right? I mean, there would be some reorganizing there clearly, but it's not like Kaminga just fell off. It's just he never got the minutes. And so he kept getting thrust in for these very limited spurts. You also had a head coach who, let's say, like he drove in a game, he drove to the paint and tried to make a bucket and he got blocked or he turned the ball over. Kerr would just yank his ass. Like there was no patience there with him in terms of allowing mistakes. And you also have a lot of fans in this market who are just really irate because there is a gross double standard here where Kaminga never got leeway. He rarely got opportunities, yet Brandon Podziemski is routinely leading the team in minutes. He's second on the team in minutes currently. And it's like, make sense. The question, I remember the question he specifically asked was, is Kaminga the second or where do I rank him as the best player on the Warriors? Is clearly Steph's number one. When Jimmy Butler was healthy, Jimmy was number two. And then to me, Kaminga is a clear-cut number three. Like I don't know who you'd put above him outside of Steph and Jimmy. I mean, maybe Dre, you can make an argument because of how good he is defensively, and maybe it does enough offensively. But I don't know who else you would even be in the conversation, honestly. I think you guys have the potential, the Hawks, with a Jalen Johnson, Jonathan Kuminga 1-2 punch to cause havoc. I envy you guys right now, man.
That's what they're hoping for, because I think one thing they wanted with KP when he was here is that because he can shoot, spacing allows driving. You already have Jalen who can attack downhill. When KP had Jaylen Brown, that's why Jaylen Brown was so effective offensively, because he could attack, because KP would take you out of paint. He's a respectable three-point shooter. You have to respect that. And I think with the Hawks, since Quinn, emphasizes spacing and having the ability to cut and things of that nature, I think that in the Hawks system, he will be a three, which is what I've seen. You'll think that's his natural position.
Yes.
And, that creates an interesting situation with him and Zachary Richichet, which is his own conversation. But
well, in your opinion, who's better? Because I look at that right now, if that is the debate, who should start? The Frenchman, Rizzo Shaw, no disrespect, or Jonathan Kuminga. To me, it's clear cut, like no debate. It's Kuminga.
I agree. Kuminga is the better player right now. It's weird with rotations and Quinn and all that, because he's the number one pick. So if you bench him, does that mean that you're down on him? Obviously, making the trade, knowing the potential that Kaminga has. Remember, he has that option after the season. Hawks
team option after
the season. The Hawks might extend him. That is a possibility. And if you give him like a max extension, you're not paying him that to be a bench player. So I think that's why that's an interesting thing, just in terms of how does that impact Zach? Like, does that mean the Hawks may move off with him or something like that? But that's more like forward down the line offseason thinking. But I think to me, I'm going to be interested to see how much they play him off the bat. Obviously, getting he's trying to learn our offense, learn what we do, things of that nature, and get more comfortable. But I'm curious to see how much they play him. I'm curious to see how much how he works in our system, because Jalen's found so much success within our system. And essentially, people say that Kaminga and Jalen are like kind of like the same player. Not like Jalen's a better passer, but and a little bit bigger than Kaminga. But Kaminga is maybe a little bit more athletic than Jalen. Like they're both kind of similar types of guys. So I think that's why people look at that and think, hey, those two together, attacking the paint, fast break, transition, they're super dangerous. And so
right.
I'm looking at that and trying to see how that will all kind of turn out, because that's the decision the Hawks have to make is if they're going to extend him. But I don't think you make this trade unless you're going to play him and put himself in position. Don't forget who our GM is, Ansi Sule, who was with the Warriors when they drafted Kaminga.
Yeah. And I'm looking at your depth chart right now, and honestly, man, the way I would do this for the Hawks in terms of minute allocation, clearly Jalen Johnson is your best player. Side note, Jalen Johnson and Kuminga were picked in the same draft. And the difference in their careers, if you look at their development, Jalen Johnson, I know he had some injury-riddled seasons. Like there was a year or two where he played very limited minutes, but when he got opportunities, his minutes were routinely 33 a game, 35 a game. I'm spitballing there. Please forgive me for not being exact there, but he was getting a lot of run. And just like any young player, early in their career, you have to give them minutes, right? It's not a complicated formula, and you have to let them play through the mistakes so they learn through experience and get better. And what you've seen with Jalen, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, is he got the run. The numbers were not great early on, just like any rookie or young player, and he figured it out. And now you're seeing like the potential starting to reveal itself. And my God, like Jalen Johnson is special. Kaminga could easily follow that path. Like you guys could easily have the next Tatum, Jaylen Brown type combo there, like easily. I like it would. I wouldn't have zero surprise if that's what this turned into. It's just you look at Kaminga's resume. And you look at the minutes. I think he averages like 24 minutes a game. That is paltry, man. I don't think he's ever averaged more than 26 a game in his career over a season. That's just asinine treatment of a lottery pick in one of the deepest drafts in recent NBA history. All he needs is minutes. And I'm looking at your rotation right now. Like obviously Jalen Johnson should be your top minute getter. And when you follow up, I'm going to step away for 1 second, just let my dog out. Sorry about this. But so Jalen Johnson is clearly number one. Dyson Daniels is a defensive player of the year candidate year after year. Nickeil Alexander-Walker was a phenomenal signing by you guys. Bravo to that. Kaminga is right there. I would put Kaminga fourth on your pecking order right now. And he's likely gonna jump ahead of Nickeil Alexander-Walker once you start seeing him play consistently. But those are your top four. And then whoever comes after that, whether it's Corey Kispert, whether it's Zachary Rissachard, I get that. He's a number one pick. It's an investment. You can't just kind of treat a number one pick flippantly. Like you got to at least see what you're getting out of that. But a Kongwu, like that to me is like secondary. You've got your big four from what I'm seeing here. And again, it's Dyson Daniels, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Jalen Johnson, Jonathan Kuminga, and to me, the fifth player is by committee.
Nobody have that potential pick in the draft that's coming. This very strong, very talented draft class. Hawks could get a top 3, top 5, maybe top 8 pick this year as well. So obviously, top 8 would be like worst case scenario. But like for them, like that really could add to that core. Like people are like, okay, you got Kaminga. If you're the Hawks, you really hope you get number one because you're probably looking at maybe Darren Peterson because like then you're thinking, okay, are you going to add an AJ DeBonza or Cameron Boozer to that with Jalen, with Kaminga? Now it's like, I mean, maybe you just have an amazing group of wings, but I mean, I think, people wonder how could that affect the plans? Could the Hawks make a decision off Kaminga based off the lottery? Okay, if we get this pick, okay, we know what we want to do with it and go from there. So there's a lot of different things that I think that people have to take.
God, you guys have the Pelicans pick, is that right?
Yeah, Pelicans, Bucks. So whoever has the best, like the highest pick will get.
I'm so jealous of you guys, man. The Pelicans, what were they thinking? I mean, congrats. I mean, you benefited from that.
You remember that trade went down?
What's up?
Do you remember when that trade went down?
I do. And I was like, I was
flabbergasted.
I was
like, what are the Pelicans doing? You're going to be bad this year. Why would you give up a pick that's probably going to be in this draft class? This draft class, particularly 2027, they're talking about that draft class like that is a bunch draft class. This draft class is supposed to be where all the deep, talented, 3 potential franchise players, even more after that, and you're going to give up the pick in that draft class. So now the Hawks, who now are like, shoot, like I said, the Hawks don't have, there's no reason for the Hawks to tank. They're just going to try to compete. Pelicans,
unreal.
Boom, we can get a top pick.
God, you guys are so lucky. Like, if side note, if Steve Kerr was the coach of your team, Zachary Rissachar would be your center. Just to give you an idea as to how he would handle this. Like, he would play Rissachar as your center. I don't think Okongwu would get minutes under Steve Kerr. We'd get like maybe 10 or 15. Just because he's not a great shooter, right? I don't think he spaces the floor effectively. But realistically, man, if you guys like do score high in the lottery and you get one of these top 4 picks and it's another wing, there's no rule stating you can't play 5 wings. And truth is, that's what I would do. I would just roll a 5-wing uber athletic lineup that would force the other team to adjust to me. Like I would basically make you uncomfortable with my mismatches. That's what I do, man. Because if you're gonna have 5 guys out there and they're not like 6'3", 6'4", but they're all like 6'8", you can live with that, man. like I think you're gonna be fine. Like what teams like. I don't even know what elite centers would cause you problems in that scenario in the East. I mean, I like nobody with. I know Karl Anthony Towns is with the Knicks, but he doesn't exactly. I don't get the fear of God from that guy. Like Cleveland Cavaliers, like they have good bigs, but none of them just like scare me.
Probably anybody, probably like Embiid, just because
of the Pistons might be the one that.
Jalen Durant, yeah, for sure, because he's just like really strong. Everybody,
yeah, would have some doubt. But dude, in my opinion, and this is just me, you guys are in such an enviable position. Congratulations. It's been a while since I think people have said that about the Hawks, but you're there now. Bravo. And congrats on the Trae Young trade too. That was just everything you guys are doing is suddenly like who was the GM before your current guy? I forgot. I keep forgetting his name.
Fields.
Who?
Landry Fields.
Dude, he was awful. Like he was awful at that job. And the fact that he hired his college roommate to be like your head of scouting, who had 0 basketball background. The guy was an actor, and he only got into the NBA because he got hired to be a pre and post game commentator here in the San Francisco Bay Area. And then his buddy from Stanford, his roommate, hires him to be a scout when he has 0 hoops knowledge, dude. That's what the Hawks were doing for all those years. So bravo. I really am jealous of what the Hawks are doing right
now. I honestly is trying to put his vision together with this team. Obviously, he's been in y'all's organization. I think he's with the Spurs as well. So one thing he wanted to do is get us some assets because we're still recovering from the DeJounte Murray trade where we gave up all those picks, and Sadiq Bey where we gave up like 5 seconds for him. And so we've been getting picks and getting things back and collecting assets. And one thing he's always touted since being our GM has been optionality. Having options, having different routes, never being locked into one direction, knowing that it doesn't mean that we want to go in this direction, but we want the ability to say, if we need to pivot, we have the ability to pivot and it won't hurt us in the long run. So I know a lot of people, because right now, like the way we're set up, we have these picks and then we have money this offseason because a lot of guys are expiring or we have guys on really good contracts. So for us, I mean, for a lot of people, it's kind of like, listen, they're going to get to the offseason. All right, let's see what our pick ends up being. We have money. Who's available? Is there a trade we can help, facilitate? Can we get more picks? Can we maybe get a player that works? Think about it. In this, like you said, in this trade, we got Jonathan Kaminga because Warriors clearly wanted to get off of him. And we're like, you know what? Let's optionality. If he works out for us, boom. We added a young, talented player who fits what we want to do. And we gave up a guy who barely played for us. Crazy. So, like, it's like you're not looking at that as an L. And even if he doesn't work out, it's like, I mean, it's not like we gave up someone super productive for a player and he wasn't. Like, it was just like, hey, this is kind of like a very high upside, low risk type of move. And then we just put Buddy Hield in for contract reasons and things like that. Just we'll take the contract off.
The good news with Buddy is he has a $3 million buyout after this year. So because if you keep him, you got to pay him, I think, 10 or 11 million a season for the next 2 years after.
So I expect him to be cut. I think we have to cut him before the draft. So I would expect him to be cut.
Yeah, and it's a $3 million tax you got to pay, but who cares, man? It's
that's nothing in today's league. That's nothing.
That's nothing, man. Especially exactly. And why did you guys even trade for Porzingis? Was it to actually get a stretch big, or was it because he had the expiring deal this year?
Probably both. I mean, we wanted a bigger big, stretch big guy who could score. He was kind of gonna be that third guy with Trey and Jalen. And like on the first few games of the season, I mean, they all averaged like 20 something a game. Like, so like offensively, they were great. Like, you got what you wanted from it. You know, and I think he just fit what they were envisioning and wanting to do. And so, you know, I think that's why we made that move. And then, like I said, it was a move where it's like, it's easy to say now, oh, it didn't work out. Oh, we should be mad. But like at the end of the day, you made this move knowing like he's an expiring deal.
Yeah.
Move his contract. Expiring deals are very valuable in today's league. But if he's productive and we're competitive, like and he's playing, you know, then we can look into, okay, do we want to talk about a contract? That's the good thing about expiring deals. It's literally if you work out, maybe we can talk. If it don't, we're off the books. And so I think that's how they viewed it. They was like optionality. We could keep him if it works out. We could let him go if it doesn't. We took the route where we let him go. All right, we got a potential young phenom potentially back in return. And if that works out for us, we're going to be talking about this trade for years to come.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. By the way, the last time I collaborated with someone in Georgia, it was Casey Stern. We're doing a dual stream called NBA Coast to Coast. You and I need to talk down the road at some point in case you're interested in doing another show that covers the NBA as a whole. And speaking of the NBA as a whole, dude, I did a show earlier today talking about this Kevin Durant thing, largely because he said a lot of shit, man. Sorry to swear. I don't know if that's okay on your channel, but he said a lot of things that were eyebrow raisers that like to me, besides the fact that he painted this even clearer picture of what his issue was with the Warriors. And in case you missed that show or you haven't been following this ordeal, Durant basically spelling out that he's a superstar. That's how his mind works. And he was with a team where he was a secondary citizen to Stephen Curry, which makes sense. But I can also understand KD not being appreciative of being in an environment like that. I also don't understand why Steve Kerr didn't put more of an effort to not make him feel as much like that to keep the relationship copacetic. But I digress. You know, we have a better idea what happened there. But what was making me laugh, though, besides the fact that KD now has to answer to his own teammates, he called out two of his own teammates, man. Alperen Şengün for not being a good shooter or defensive player, and Jabari Smith attacking his acumen, among many things. And, dude, crazy shit. I don't know what's going to happen there. Good luck with that, KD. But you and I were, before we started recording, we're laughing at the fact that during yesterday's All-Star festivities, every time the camera went to KD, he's on his phone. Like you didn't look happy on his phone either. He was panicking. Well, what was your take on that, dude? It was honestly hilarious.
You know what's funny, bro? The first thing I thought of when I saw stuff like that is, you know, so many players probably have these thoughts. It's just obviously you can't say that publicly. Right. So it's like, you know, oh no, I mean, I have all the belief in the world, but then he talking to his friends like, brother, this guy stinks. So like, it's one of those things where I just thought it was funny because this isn't the first time. If you remember the first KD Burner situation when he lost Oklahoma City when he was with you guys, and then he forgot to go to the burner and he was on his main account talking about he can't win with them cats. Like, I mean, like, dude, like it's always so funny because now you don't know how many players have burners. Like, I know Trae Young has a burner. We don't know what it is. Nobody knows what Trae Young's burner is because he does this documentary.
They all have burners.
He has this documentary he does just keeping up with his season. And I remember when he got traded, he posted in his documentary of him listening to one of the spaces that one of the other Hawks community channels had, and it said he was listening. But obviously, nobody in that group saw Trae Young is listening to this. But clearly, he was in there on a burner account. And so, like, it's just so funny to me to kind of see it because I'm like, you know, especially in that setting, because clearly he wasn't making these tweets publicly. He was making these tweets to a group and to friends and things of that nature. And so, like, he was just keeping it within the privateness of that group to say, I feel this way about this. Because at the end of the day, he's like he said about Steph, I hold him accountable. They look at me crazy. And I'm like, what's the problem? But we knew that from when he left Golden State that he was just kind of like, I kind of want to be able to say I was the reason why we won and I get the credit. And so that's why he left. And so it's not surprising that those comments that he's being accused of saying came out, because he's just like, geez, I mean, shoot, he called what, Booker and Vogel, Stalin, who? Like
Hitler. And Hitler. Yeah. And then he doubled down and brought up Mussolini, I think, and Kim Jong-un. Mm-hmm. But I thought that was a very fascinating glimpse into the mentality of superstar players and NBA players as general, because what I took away from that wasn't so much that he looked at his coach and the star player on that team as dictators. It was the fact that he didn't like taking the blame for losses and seeing one of his teammates get the credit for wins. And I think we see that with certain dichotomies and relationships and situations. And the Warriors have been dealing with that. That ultimately is why I think Kuminga got so much grief from Steve Kerr and a lot of people in this fan base, because he was getting scapegoated. When I think the real issue here was Draymond Green and his lack of spacing that he provides. He's just not an exemplary offensive player. He can hold his own, but he's not elite at it. But Steve Kerr was not going to bench Draymond, so he had to find a scapegoat, and his scapegoat was Kuminga, and it really messed the relationship up. I don't think it was fair to Kuminga either. And now Kaminga is with you guys, and where I personally think it's going to work out phenomenally. Speaking of burners, by the way, it's a day or two before Kevin Durant gets busted again. And side note, when it's a pattern, like that, like credibility is getting shot tremendously, man. Like you said, this wasn't the first time that he might be getting caught here with the burner. But Anthony Edwards, I don't know if you saw that just a day or two ago, he got busted with the burner. Now, he didn't do anything like salacious. He literally was starting a live video on a different Instagram account, like 5 seconds in, was like, oh, whoops, and then shut it off. And everyone was like, okay, so that's your burner. Like you just slipped up there. But again, nothing incriminating, like nothing that revealed much in the archives. But it leads to another question I have, because people are talking about Anthony Edwards, who played for Georgia for that 1 year. I don't know if he's actually from there or not. You can confirm that. I don't. But is there any hope of him going to the Hawks? And is that lottery pick next year, could that be what entices Minnesota to contemplate a trade like that? What are your thoughts?
Well, first and foremost, I do not think Minnesota will move off of Anthony Edwards unless he says he wants out. So I do not see them moving off of him.
Let's say he does. Let's say Anthony Edwards tells the team, I want to go home. What then?
I mean, obviously, if you're the Hawks, I think you definitely have to look into it. Obviously, you then in that situation, that pick would probably be at the forefront. You got to decide what you're giving up. Obviously, he plays like the 2 primarily, so you probably got to give up Dyson. You probably got to give up Dyson, Richiche, that pick just to be the starting framework, to be honest, for a player like him. You probably got to give up next year's first, some seconds, maybe throw another player or 2 in there. And then, usually sometimes teams in the return, they'll give you Ant, and then they'll give you a player they don't want. Hey, take him too. And then, that's the deal. I've said, though, if Ant ever did request a trade, he is one of the few stars where I know he would have the Hawks on his wish list. I don't know if they'd be number 1, but I know that he would be. They would be on the list. Like, there's not a lot of stars who ask out and say, let me go to Atlanta. Ant would be someone who's like, yeah, I put Atlanta on the list. Why not? Because I think, he loves Atlanta. He loves, the wings. He loves everything about it. Like, he speaks very highly of it. You see him repping Atlanta at the All-Star game.
Yeah.
Conversations with Jalen. Like, people, Hawks fans are looking for anything to just say if there was a slither of hope that he could potentially think about it, that, would he do it? It's funny. I remember Trey tweeted out like a year or so ago about something. I forgot. Something was brought up in regards to that. And he was just like, he basically made it seem like Ant should have been a Hawk, essentially. Obviously, I don't know what that means behind the scenes, but like, it's one of those things where it's like, if that is the one star, I think one of the few stars that I think the Hawks would move on if available. Unless Ant was like, get me to Atlanta. Then you're going to get one of those supercharged, we're moving quickly on this type situation. So, because obviously the Hawks would have some assets that Minnesota probably could want.
Hell yeah.
Obviously, Minnesota decide what they want to do. But obviously right now, they're winning. They're making the playoffs. So right now, Ant's probably like, I'm not going to leave while things are good. You know, I don't want, that would make me
It
look
could change fast, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you could make the argument that Anthony Edwards in Minnesota has not been given the supporting cast that he deserves, man. For someone as good as he is, I mean, a potential next face of the NBA. I mean, the second best player on that team is who? I don't even like Rudy Gobert. I mean, I don't. I think you could easily make the argument that Anthony Edwards is in a situation that is not necessarily ideal. And I looked it up right now. He's a born and raised Atlanta kid. He's from Atlanta. So he, dude, I don't know. I would be trying to push that narrative if I'm a Georgian. That's just me. Bring your son home. Bring your boy home. That's
great, bro. The city would definitely get active if he came home for sure.
It would be incredible.
1000%.
And if I'm Atlanta, I'm shopping for, again, that lottery pick. I'm shopping future first round picks. I'm shopping Zachary Rissachar. I'm shopping CJ McCollum to make the numbers work. If I mean, he might be on an expiring, I don't know, but my dude, I personally would do everything in my power though to keep Dyson, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Jalen, Kaminga, because if you can add Anthony Edwards and make that your 5, you got yourself a potential dynasty there, dude. Like that's. God damn, that's some exciting shit to think about. I'm putting that out there in the universe for you guys, man. And yeah,
I'll take it.
And side note, like the Warriors were not going to trade Kuminga to a Western Conference opponent, which is a huge reason why he went to the Hawks. So congrats on that front, man. Because
and we're done playing you guys for the year too, so y'all won't have
one more game. One more game.
One more?
Oh, yeah. And there's a lot of people who have it on the calendar. It's March 21st.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we do. Because we played you guys at Golden State. Y'all haven't played us in Atlanta yet.
Correct. It's going to be in Atlanta. And there are a lot. There like people are already talking about watch parties because
Kaminga game.
Yeah, because they're expecting vengeance, man. They're expecting an angry, full of vitriol Jonathan Kaminga wanting some payback on his old team, man. And I don't blame him. I do not blame him. Are you excited about Buddy Hield?
I mean, I ain't expecting the brother to do much for me. So, I mean, sure. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, if he does play, just hit some threes, buddy, and we'll call it a day. I mean, that's that. Listen, he played actually for us. It was the second to last game against Minnesota because we had injuries that game. And yeah, it wasn't great. I mean, he had a negative plus minus on the floor and everything. So, but obviously, again, I have to give him credit. He just got there. He probably doesn't, he's not all chemistry, all that stuff. But listen, like I said, we know what Buddy Hield is. He's a veteran. He's good to have in the locker room. Can help the young guys.
That's true.
Part of a winning culture.
That's true.
Those are the types of guys you want around them, and that's what I think the Hawks are looking at when it comes to Buddy Hield is just those types of things. So, if he can give us some threes and contribute, sure. But, I'm not putting my hopes and dreams into Buddy Hield. I do not want that brother on the floor for me in a playoff series. So,
Tracy McKindle, one of our Golden Dazers, saying she's going to be there. I think you emailed us, Tracy, saying that your son goes to school in New York, and so you're going to make a part of one trip. There's going to be a lot of eyeballs on that game, man, because the way that Kaminga saga transpired, the length of years that it was going on for, man, you have a decent amount of people who are actually relieved for him. Yep. That he got released from the shackles of Steve Kerr and has a chance now to maybe shine with the Atlanta Hawks. Spreewell was right in our chat. Side note, subscribe to that, please. That's Armando Laura's show. That his buddy Evan, who was on this show previously, is routinely a part of. The Million cousins are a part of it. Anyway, Spreewell was right. $2 donation. Thank you, brothers. Asking, how did Porzingis do in pick and roll coverage? Meaning defensively, how did he hold up?
For the most part, Porzingis was fine. I mean, it just kind of depends on the type. You know how some like to have their bigs play drop and then some like to play up. KP's more of a drop big. Just because, like I say, he's not as quick laterally as he used to be, so you probably want him more starting back. But obviously, long arm, 7'3", that he's like the perfect kind of big for that type of situation. So I think, and he's really good communicating on defense. He'll definitely help guys stay lined up. Obviously, you guys already do that with Draymond, but KP, I think, in pick and roll defense will definitely help just because, again, you have size there. Now you can maybe become a little bit more aggressive if you're Golden State, come up when people try to screen you instead of being like, okay, maybe we don't have that big who can defend the rim. So we got to really be able to trap them in the front. So whatever the part of the court and then rotate after that. So KB should really definitely improve the pick and roll defense. He's not elite by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not saying that, but he will definitely help just make it harder on defense, make it harder for the team to get a good, clean shot off just because of the length.
My curiosity with Porzingis. Side note, we have people in the chat, Riz Up, for example, going, you better show Bryce that whole clip of Tingus Pingus. And I don't think Dub Nation is aware that Tingus Pingus is infamous with every fan base. Case in point, when Kristaps Porzingis was with the Boston Celtics, and this is making me wonder, should I sell this with the Golden Days merch store? They actually had a Tingus Pingus shirt. See that in green right there. Very simple, but to the point. Tingus Pingus, but he wants the whole clip. Is that too crude for your show? I bleeped out the F-bombs. Would the Bleav in Hawks show be interested in a Tingus Pingus rant, or is that too much for you, Bryce?
No, that's fine, man. You know what I'm saying? We just got to mark it explicit. That's cool with me, though.
Bleav. Here we go, Tingus Pingus.
What the fuck did they do? Who the fuck is this? Who the fuck is Tingus Pingus? I never heard of fucking Latvia. You drafted this fucking kid. You stupid motherfuckers, you.
I'm sorry if that was, I'm so juvenile. I still laugh at that. But it begs the question, I'm sorry, that doesn't beg the question, but I have a question pertaining to the modern NBA and the pace of it being so much faster than I think we've been accustomed to in previous years. The data shows a correlation between now and the 80s version of NBA basketball, when Showtime Lakers, that crazy Nuggets offensive juggernaut, was around. And I can't for the life of me picture Kristaps Porzingis keeping up. How did that look to you? Did it defy like the optics of what we should expect? Because I don't to me, like, Porzingis doesn't translate to speed and keeping up with the pace of the game. Like how is he doing with that in Atlanta this year?
It was interesting because we want to run. Quinn wants him to move and go fast, and I'm like, KP's not really a runner. But again, I think it's just the differences of the game of like, okay, but he can still run and get a transition three, and that counts in the fast break. And so I feel like with KP on the floor, you'll never be super fast with him, but he definitely helps that half court offense. He will do that for you. That definitely was. Our half court offense was much better than last year when KP was on the floor. Very small sample size with Trey and them, just because he's a guy who you can slow it down and he can, get you right. But with pace, he can do it. It just, again, it depends on what you're kind of asking, and maybe for you guys, maybe at times when he's on the floor, again, with the illness and things, maybe you do play a slower pace. We don't know if pace plays a role of potentially that type having to go as much, especially in today's NBA, all the injuries we see just because of pace and of play. So, I think, he's not going to out here and 360 windmill on nobody, but he can help. He would probably be more of a shooter in transition, or a guy you see if come down running down the lane. You get rewarded if you run, and he can still do that.
My concern is more defensively. Like were teams pushing the ball on you guys a lot when he was playing?
Yeah. Like I said, it's weird to say it's on him because our defensive transition defense was not good this year. But you could see people taking advantage of that just because, again, he's not the fastest guy on the floor. So you're not going to have a big who's going to, chase people down. KB is not a chase down guy unless he was already close in range. So if you're expecting a chase down guy, that's not going to be KP. That is not going to be him. Obviously, if he's taking the three and then you're in transition, that's a little bit better shot because it's already closer to the other side of the rim. If he's, under the paint, probably won't be that much of a factor unless you get him back in the half court offense. So
we shall see. I'm riveted, man. The NBA basketball is back Thursday. Bryce, you and I didn't talk about how long we're going to go. We're at an hour mark. So this feels like maybe it's a good time to duck out, but I'll leave that up to you. Any follow-ups, anything else you're curious about with Kaminga, Buddy Hield, or any other topics you want to touch on before we wrap it up?
Sure. I'll ask this one question just to see what you think about this. About kind of like, I guess, state of the Warriors, I guess. I guess kind of for you guys, are you in the boat of we need to start thinking about life after Steph Curry, or are you kind of like, let's go one more year, see what we can do? Because I literally, when Jimmy went down, I was like, the Warriors are the type of franchise like, well, Jimmy gonna come back next year, so we can still get another star, and then Steph, we'll be right back in the picture, right? Right. But yeah, I want to know what do you think the Warriors should do? Because I think you're getting to a point where it's like you want him to retire a Warrior, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know if we're gonna win again with you. So it's like, what do we do? And is Steph gonna be okay with just kind of being in the middle of the pack?
It's and the middle is like is being gracious. I mean, they're the speed, and they're more likely to drop down than move up. Look, me personally, and it depends on who you ask, right? Because this market in general is somewhat polarizing. It depends on the media member. The general environment here from a media perspective is one of massive sycophant nature in terms of and it's not Steph. Like, to me, Steph deserves it. Steph is one of the all-time greats. Whatever he wants, give him. But unfortunately, one of the things he wants is the head coach. And to me, that is a massive problem because this is a coach that when he was given a phenomenally deep, talented roster, could do great things with it. But the moment he's given the task of developing young players, of managing, like a non-dynastic roster, if you will, you're seeing a lot of flaws, dude. You're like this guy, like he's just not built. Like the correlation I always make on this show is with Casey Jones, former Celtics coach, won 3 rings with them, but it was Larry Bird's team, right? I mean, Bird was the one doing all the heavy lifting. He won a 4th title as the assistant with the Lakers in the early 70s, that when Wilt Chamberlain and Jerry West were the players on that team. And back then there was only one assistant coach for each team. So assistants got a lot of weight for rings as well. And then he got 8 as a player, but he played alongside Bill Russell. And, so no one talks about Casey Jones as being like this brilliant, innovative mind. Like, look, he was a fine coach as a manager with a damn stacked team that Red Auerbach built for him. He was an awesome role player on a team that Bill Russell carried. But do the 12 rings that he has earned, like, does that push him up in rankings or anything like that? No. And for me, having covered Steve Kerr as closely as I have all these years, like, that is how I see Steve Kerr in a very similar vein. Like, great manager, certainly was perfect for Stephen Curry, but they're at a point now where it's like the moment rebuild starts, he's definitely not going to be a part of it. The question is, when is that rebuild going to start? End of this year, end of next year. And you have the homer culture, right? You have the fans who, no matter what, will shake their pom-poms and say, go Warriors, like, great move. Like, they'll never criticize, they'll never be negative. And those folks, I feel like, are in the vein of, yeah, let's do it another year. Why not? Right. But then if you add any pragmatism to it, or if you're trying to add any logic to it, and that's what we on this show try to do, I think a rebuild is 100% the way to go. Now, does that mean you move on from Steph? No. I do think, like, you can have Steph and try to start move on, try to start transitioning in the process. I mean, look, Kobe Bryant was a lifer. It didn't necessarily end well for him. What are you going to do? But he finished his career with the Lakers. Dirk Nowitzki, it didn't end super great for him, but he was a lifer. It's not going to always end well for these lifers, right? Like, you can't just set it up where it's like this perfect fairy tale ending. With that said, I don't think Steph wants to go anywhere. I don't think the Warriors have any desire to move on from Steph, but there is a great concern about next year, because I think you're literally buying fool's gold if you think a 39-year-old Steph, a 37-year-old Jimmy Butler coming off an ACL tear, a 37-year-old Draymond Green, a Kristaps Porzingis who's now in his 30s, and you're dealing with the Achilles things, the POTS. That, to me, is not a recipe for success. I think if the Warriors start to tank now and aim for a lottery pick, you can start this process sooner than later. But there is a great fear here that this is going to go another season. And my opinion on that is, if that's the plan, it's going to be another 8 seed, another 9 seed. These guys, aging is a real thing, man. No one beats Father Time. Just because LeBron James has managed to extend it to 41 does not mean that same formula applies to everybody. Most people age, their bodies break down, And again, Steph's been out for like weeks with this runner's knee. Runner's knee is an old man injury, man. And that's what Steph's dealing with now. So it's a crappy situation here because the team doesn't want to let go from what is now an absolutely like dead dynasty. But you have a lot of pushback on a rebuild because Stephen Curry loves Steve Kerr. And Steve Kerr is not the guy for a rebuild. So it's a weird no man's land. I feel like the Warriors are in right now. Does that make sense? And any follow-ups on that?
That definitely makes a lot of sense. I was wondering about that because that's kind of how I feel about the situation for you guys. It's just kind of need to start at some point. And at the same time, you have Steph who you probably don't want to leave. So it's like, it's like how you have to kind of combine them together, but make sure Steph's on board and everything. And then also get a gauge on how long is Steph going to play. Can he give you that answer? Like, how much longer do you want to do this? Like, I'm assuming you're not trying to be LeBron and play to your 41, 42. So, what is that for you? And so I think that will be the interesting piece of the puzzle, I think, for you guys, to trying to figure out kind of what that looks like and what the future looks like for you guys. Because, I mean, obviously with him, you became one of the great dynasties in basketball. And, when you have that type of success, it's hard to say, oh, let it go. It's hard because it's just like, you don't want to go back, I guess, to, I don't know, since I wasn't a Warriors fan, I don't know how y'all felt about the team before Steph. But I guess back to that pre-Steph era, and it's just like, I don't know if I want to go back to that.
I don't either. No, I don't know. None of us want that. I mean,
first of all, guy back in the day, but yeah.
But the fan base here is very weird because you have a lot of fans who jumped on when the dynasty started, right? You have all these bandwagoners who will likely jump off when Steph's gone. So for the core fans, like the true fans, and especially the older ones who remember those days, it's a fear of mine. Hell yeah, dude. We call that shit torture back in that day for a very good reason because it felt like torture. And a huge reason why Kerr triggers me as much as he does is because a lot of what he does is very reminiscent of what Don Nelson used to do in terms of being very finicky about personnel, about wanting to kind of put his fingerprints on the roster and the style of play instead of just sitting back and letting the best players play. That is not a flaw. And Nelly was also an advocate for small ball too, like putting speed above size and when you could easily do both. But I digress, man. It's frustrating. Yeah. And there's a great fear about that. A lot of people, before you go, a lot of people in our chat, Coach CJ888 says the Hawks need better coaching. Marcus Barber wants me to ask you, how is Quinn Snyder? Simon 2 wants to ask about the Hawks coaching. And I just saw Armando Laura in our chat bring that up as well. How is the Hawks coach? Quinn Snyder, to the best of my knowledge, is a fantastic coach. He's a Duke prodigy. He's a Mike Krzyzewski, former player, and I think assistant for a brief while. I think you guys have a great coach, but I don't know as well as you. So take it away, sir. How is Quinn?
I will say this. Right now, Quinn Snyder is it's a very big talking point in the Hawks community.
Interesting.
I think he's in his full year 3 now with the Hawks, and you haven't seen a progression upwards winning. There's a lot of factors that come into that. Roster construction, what we've had, when he came in with DeJounte and Trey, they both couldn't play together. Terrible defensive backcourt, caused a lot of issues. You've had issues where you lose a guy and you don't really have any good NBA players after you lose that guy. That impacts you. He's had to work with a lot of, different types of things. But at the same time, he's a really good offensive coach. Offense has always been a very strength of his. The Hawks have always been a top 10 offense with Quinn Snyder. So offensively, especially with Trey, that was never an issue. It's just the defense has never been consistent. And it's always been kind of the weakness and one of the Achilles heels of the team. This is funny to bring this up, but I'm kind of going back to Ricochet here. What you guys felt with Kerr and Kaminga is how some people feel with Snyder and Ricochet, because
interesting. The
only difference is that, Kaminga has had more moments and more times where he's played at a high level. And I think even Steph and Draymond, from what I'm hearing in the past, feel like this brother can play. Like we support him. With Richiche, he's had moments, especially his rookie year, where you would think, okay, we saw some good signs. He can build on that. And then this year, he's been inconsistent. He's had some injuries. He's one of those guys who he'll play well, get hurt, then struggle coming back, and then he has to get back his rhythm. And then he also he isn't like the natural creator. Shooting has been up and down, things of that nature. And so some people wonder if Quinn only plays him like 24, 25 minutes. And he doesn't.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah.
And so people have been like, is he holding Richiche back? But then is Richiche just not that good? And Quinn knows that. And so he's just like, I'm trying to win games. And he's not on some nights one of my best 5 players on the floor. It's tough. But I think overall, I think Quinn's a good coach. I think Quinn, he has, a good, like I said, core offensively. Like I expect Kaminga to be able to feast offensively here. I think that will not be the issue. And then we'll see what he does defensively. But I think that, Quinn does a good job. He's developed a lot of guys. He's developed a Kongu. I mean, Hunter, when we traded him, was shooting a career high from 3. Like a lot of guys' 3-point shot got better here. DeJounte was hitting a career high from 3 before he got traded. Because, we got Kyle Korver who works with the players, and Kyle Korver is one of the greatest 3-point shooters in the game. So, I mean, the development here has been really, really good. Obviously, Nikhil having a career year, Dyson breaking onto the scene. Like, there's Jalen. He's the one who gave Jalen a chance. Like, people forget, when we had Nate McMillan, he was not playing Jalen Johnson. He said he's not playing unless we have injuries.
See, that sounds like Kerr. That sounds like Steve Kerr.
Like, we're not developing. And it's like, what do you mean you have a bunch of 23, 22, and 21-year-olds? You can't say that. They're developing. And it was just crazy to hear that. And then when Quinn got there, he was like, wait, he could pass, he could score. Why is he not playing? And so it's a mixed bag with Quinn here in Atlanta. But I think he's still a good coach. Do I question his rotations at times? Absolutely. But overall, I think he's a good coach. I think he can develop. I think he is a guy who I think with this new regime kind of in the front office, he will probably get another year because they're kind of shifting out of the Trae Young era. Because remember, he was brought in to make the Trae Young thing work. Now you shift that out the way. Now you're changing to a more free-flowing, free-form basketball that he wants, as we call it, Quinn ball, which is multiple guys in double digits, high assists. You want 30 assists a night, things of that nature, and just finding players who fit that. So, I mean, overall, I'm good with Quinn. We'll see how it goes. I could easily see if this man Kaminga ain't finishing. I mean, like I said, I don't know what his thinking is when it comes to these decisions, because Quinn also kind of has that. He kind of goes, he defaults the things that work for him. Like for him, he usually likes to default to go small. He likes to go offense over defense. So I'm very curious to see how with Kaminga coming in, what is the vision? I feel like him and Aussie had to have a conversation about him. Because again, with that team option coming up, you're not bringing him in here to be on the bench. We need to know this is a guy we need to consider trading, extending, or maybe we just pick up the option. He plays an extra year, and then we'll think about extending him. So I think it'll be interesting to see how all that kind of comes together.
And you're right in terms of Jalen Johnson, his second year with the Hawks, and I think I'm guessing that was Nate McMillan's last year. Jalen Johnson only played 14.9 minutes per game. Quinn Snyder's first year 3 of Jalen Johnson's career, his minutes jump up to 33.7. And that's what you need. And look, Jalen Johnson that season only shot 35.5% from deep. That's not great. It's not bad, but it's not great. He only was putting up 16 points per game, those 33.7 minutes per game. So those aren't but he was grabbing 8.7 boards. With that said, those aren't numbers that are blowing you out of your seat, but you have to recognize that young talent needs minutes. And by him playing through whatever he needed to do to learn the mistakes, there's so much nuance in life, and especially in the NBA. Now you see Jalen Johnson is an all-star. And a lot of this comes down to trusting your coach in terms of whether or not they have an eye for talent, right? Like Nate McMillan sounds an awful lot like Steve Kerr in terms of just, having no patience for the mistakes, having no patience for a young player who's not going to give you like consistently high quality minutes. But that's the formula if you want to develop a young player. That it's not complicated. With that said, in your opinion, is Quinn making a mistake with Reese Shar with the minutes, or do you agree with him that he's just not that guy? Like what's your take on that?
It's tough because the thing with the situation is that I've said that one of the big issues, like I mentioned, was closing games, and I've said if Reese is not playing well, I can't blame Quinn for not finishing with him, especially if someone's playing better. Because I think some people look at, well, he's 6'9", you know, he's almost like 6'10". We need the defense, you know, even if and he needs to be in that situation. He just needs to be in clutch moments to get more experience in those situations. But then at the same time, it's like there are times where Reese actually is playing a really good game, active defensively, scoring offensively, and then he doesn't finish. And he'll go with like CJ McCollum.
That's frustrating.
Or like before CJ got there, like Luke Kennard or something like that. And you're like, why are we like he's played well enough where he deserves to finish this game. And so I think with him, it's tough because, you know, you don't want to give up on him. He's like 20. He's like, what, 20? Like, he's so young. And so it's just like, you don't want to give up on him in his skill because, you know, I don't think Reese Shea will ever become a star player, but I think he can become a really good starter.
Okay.
You know, but at the same time, you know, he has to kind of figure out what part of his game is going to carry him. Like, you always got a guy, like you would think for him, transition would be his best skill. He was especially his rookie year, he was really good at cutting. Like, he was a guy who would get a lot of, like effort points. He was just in the right place at the right time layup. Just gets a backdoor cut. You know, and so he's getting 8-10 points off of that. He's not good enough right now offensively to just say, me, you, I'm pulling up over you. That's not his game right now. And so you want Reese Shea cutting, you want him running, getting him easier looks, and then his shot. One of the biggest factors for Reese Shea is going to be his three-point shot. If he becomes a great shooter, that can raise his ceiling. If he's just an average shooter, then we're talking, okay, is he just a top role player or spot starter? So there's a lot of things. A lot of different Hawks fans have different opinions. Some Hawks fans absolutely hate him, think we need to trade him. He's not going to be good. Cut your losses. And there's some that are like, I believe Quinn hasn't done right by him, and that he needs another coach, and etc. I'm under the impression with Reese Shea where I'm not really in a hurry to move him. I would want to see, depending on what happens with Kaminga, you know, if he's playing 20, 25 minutes a night, I don't know if that would dramatically change if you did make that decision at some point to say, hey, Kaminga is going to be the starter. But then see how Zach does in that role. That may be a better role for him right now. I mean, sometimes guys are just like DeAndre Hunter played better for us when he came off the bench. So, like, you know, it's one of those things where it's like, I'm not like on this get Reese Shea out of town. I just want to see him continue to get better, continue to develop, and just kind of continue to see how the fit works. Because there's definitely things he does for us really well, especially defensively. He's underrated defensively. You know, he can create havoc, ball pressure. Obviously, like I said, he's a bigger body, et cetera, et cetera. But overall, I think Reese Shea, I'm not out on Reese Shea. I think the Quinn Reese Shea dynamic is just something we have to kind of see continue to evolve.
Well, and here's another complicating factor with Reese Shea, and let me correct me correct me if I'm wrong on any of this or if I'm off base. Some drafts just aren't deep. Like, a lot of people are talking right now about tanking being a very serious issue, and I'm not saying it's not, but the vitally important variable that I see ignored in these discussions routinely is it's not coincidental that the tanking story ramps up and is far bigger in years where the ensuing draft is massively deep, right? Because you have all these teams wanting something out of that. Whereas a draft like what the Hawks had, where they had the number one pick in 2024, or the Warriors did in 2020, where they had the number 2 pick. Some drafts just stink. Some
Yeah.
drafts suck. And even though like technically that player's number 1, it doesn't mean that you're getting a surefire thing. And James Wiseman was an example of that. Number 2 pick in a draft that had a shitload of holes in it. The 2024 draft, I'm looking at it right now, where Risa Shar was number 1, Alex Sarr was number 2. Jury's still out on him, although I think he's going to be special, but jury's still out. Reed Shepherd was number 3, and I don't think many Rockets fans are thrilled about that right now. For a number 3 pick, you would think when Fred VanVleet went down that there would be no concern. Next man up, your number 3 pick, but you're seeing a lot of holes there. Stephon Castle, if that draft was redone, would probably be your number 1 pick. Ron Holland was a good pick for the Pistons, but it's not like he's a heavy rotation guy. He's a specific role player. That's your number 5 pick. The number 6 pick in that draft, Salon with the Hornets. I mean, what's up?
He hasn't done anything. Hornets fans hate him.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm just saying. Like the 7th pick, Donovan Clingan, maybe he might be something, but he could also just be a big stiff. The 8th pick in that draft, Rob Dillingham is already being called a bust. And point is, like, some drafts are phenomenal, some drafts blow. And your draft, I mean, when I say your draft, I mean the draft that you guys had the number 1 pick in wasn't the deepest, dude. There was no guarantees that Zachary Risochet was going to turn into a superstar player, and that might just be a reality you're facing. I'm very familiar. Warriors fans are very familiar with a coach who just makes very questionable rotational decisions, because as the Hall of Famer Rick Barry, who's a regular guest of this show, once said, an NBA head coach has one responsibility: minutes, and allocating them, figuring out who plays when. Obviously, there's a lot of other responsibilities, but that's the core power that they have, and how they use that often dictates, their sustainability long term. So for Hawks fans, and again, this is just the Warriors fans' perspective, and if you got it, well, we can wrap it up right now, but that's the messaging I would say that needs to be conveyed as well, is that he was the number 1 pick, but it was in a very weak draft. And I know it's only year 2, but who knows? Like if he ends up just being a role player in this league, I wouldn't be surprised, because in drafts like that, it's very hit or miss.
Yeah, for sure. It's tough, man. Drafting is not as easy as it seems sometimes. You kind of just try to find the best guy you think fits what you do. Yeah. But you never know until they get out there to see how it actually all turns out. So
absolutely right, man. Anything else? I feel like this was an awesome show. I hope. I mean, the audience decides that, but
I think we've touched on, I feel like, every topic we were supposed to, plus more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad to see some of your audience members slipping in here late. For the Bleav in Hawks fans, thank you. And for the Golden Dazers, thank you as well. If you're part of the Golden Days audience and you love the Atlanta Hawks, and or you want to keep track of Jonathan Kaminga in his new home, Bryce, take it away. How can people follow you, and how can people find Bleav in Hawks on all platforms?
So you can type into YouTube Bleav in Hawks, BLEAV, Bleav in Hawks, to find all those episodes that I do. Obviously, with Kaminga coming into the lineup, I will be talking a lot about him in these coming episodes. So if you do want to keep up with him, definitely go to the channel, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Also available on any audio platform as well: Google, Spotify,
Apple
Podcasts, all those. Yeah. So if you want to go over there, follow through audio, you go into lunch, you go into work. Obviously, I know maybe a lot of your fan base is on the West Coast, so 3 hours behind. Listen, by the time I get a podcast up, sometimes it's 12 at night, audio wise. That's always the first one I get out first. You'll be 9 o'clock every time. You'll have plenty of time before you go to bed. Listen to the pod, everything at this time. So, and then also follow me on Twitter at BryceC_2K2. Obviously, I'll be live tweeting and post things there as well with all my content. So definitely, if you are trying to keep up with Kaminga, I definitely will make sure that I will talk about him, every performance he has. Obviously, if he has a big game, he'll be more of a priority. And then obviously, I also do a player performances segment, which I'll always mention just how guys do. And I'll go ahead and post the name in the comments in case you guys just need a visual, wording of how it's spelled. Just Bleav in Hawks.
It's right below you, Bryce. It literally says Bleav right below you. under your name, BLEAV. Yeah, it's the name of the network. Some people in the chat, real quick before we go, Bryce, and you could make this very short, and we'll end the show here. Your thoughts on Brandon Podziemski, who is another polarizing player for the Golden State Warriors. But again, my primary gripe for this guy: why is he second on your team in minutes? He led the team in minutes the last 2 games. What are your thoughts on Brandon Podziemski? We'll wrap it up there.
It's so funny I think when we played you guys, it was like he sometimes played out of control. I think sometimes, and it's kind of reckless basketball, and I see the frustration. I'll say that I see the frustration because you're like, how would this Kaminga not get consistent playing time? But Brandon, like, how did that? Like, how is he someone that y'all are like, yeah, we're good with him, but Kaminga can't? Like, that doesn't make sense. That's why I think people look at him and think Kerr is like, brother, you're crazy. So, like, listen, he's definitely one of the, like, listen, I get it. Maybe he'll play his. Listen, he's had some good games for you guys, but he's also I mean, every player has their day where it's like, all right, here's that 130-point game.
Just to give you some perspective, Bryce, there's a Twitter account out there. It's a Podziemski. I don't know if it's a Podziemski music account or it's a Podziemski fan account. But they said it's on Twitter, and they said they're not going to tweet again until Podziemski gets a 30-point game, and that Twitter account hasn't been active in nearly 2 years. So just to get, and they've kept to their word. It's funny shit, man. People will go back to it every now and again because he pinned the tweet. He goes, "We will not tweet again until Podziemski puts up 30 in a game," and it's just been sitting there since I think 2024. It's comedy. It is comedy.
I mean, listen, if y'all are going towards a mode of just kind of taking a step back, this might be the chance. This is gonna get
that's fair. That's what I've been saying.
This might be the stretch where he comes back. If y'all are gonna take a step back, Podziemski may have a shot right here coming up. We're gonna.
Would you guys give up a first round pick for him? Would you guys give up a first rounder for Podziemski?
Absolutely not.
All right, Bryce, love you, man. Thank you. Thank you, brother. And we're done.